Hey guys, it's Fluffer with the United Operations. So, I wanted to do a video because I've been getting a lot of requests lately for tutorial on Falcon BMS, and I know Tenet, aka Kraus, did a lot of systems type stuff, but he never really touched on like proper landing procedures. Not really proper landing procedures, but standard landing procedures, let's call it that. So as you guys can see, here's a picture of a beautiful F-16, looks like a Block 50 from the Wild Weasels out of Misawa, landing. So we'll talk about some stuff. We'll get back to this guy in a second. Alright, so let's talk about what a runway is, or certain features of a runway. Let's go from top to bottom. So you have runway landing lights, which are a visual indicator, or a visual assisted indicator that kind of guide you in towards the active runway. Alright, so we have the active runway, which is runway 18. They just don't make these numbers up and put it on the runway. You know, it's basically a degree heading on where that is referencing. So 180 is pointing south, 180 on the compass. So as you can see, it's 180 on the runway as well. Next, we're talking for the touchdown zone, which is these bars right here. You guys have probably seen them about 1,000 times on if you're flying on a commercial flight or just in general. All right, and then you have what are called VASIs, Visual Assisted Slope Indicator. These basically tell you what glide slope that you're on, and they visually help you land the aircraft. So you're in a good, proper attitude to land the airplane. Next, we have the 1,000-foot marker, aka captain bars. This is basically 1,000 feet from the start of the runway or the threshold, which, if you want to imagine what a threshold is 5 identical bars behind the runway indicator. So the touchdown zone is approximately 500 feet from the start, the end of the threshold, and the 1,000-foot marker is from 1,000 feet from the end of the threshold as well. Okay, so a couple things that we need to take a note here. This is your desired touchdown area, and let's say that this is hypothetically a 10,000 foot runway. If we hit the 1,000 foot marker, then I know I have 9,000 feet to stop the airplane. Okay, generally known, like let's say we're on a 5,000 foot runway. If I touch down after the 1,000 foot marker, and I'm too fast and I know I'm not going to be able to stop before 5,000 feet, like if I'm in a big airplane, like a 737 or a C5 or something like that, then that's going to be in my decision-making process to go around. Some other things to note here: if you're doing like instrument condition landings and you don't touch down by the 1,000-foot marker, that's generally a good note to go around. If you're obviously in instrument conditions, if you're on a longer runway, however, you might be able to salvage the landing. So let's talk about what these are. So you have the VASI. The VASI is a visual slope indicator. This kind of tells you it tells you what your attitude is to land. Okay, so if you guys have seen this in game numerous times, we'll go ahead and go to the red brush. 4 white on the VASI indicates which will be it'll be before the touchdown zone, but in between the threshold. Okay, between the threshold and the touchdown zone. Let's go to the paint bucket. So this indicates that we're above glide slope, which means that before we touch this, if we're aiming for the end of the runway, that we're higher than we need to be. All right, if we go to 3 white and 1 red, 3 white and 1 red, that indicates that we're slightly high, but we're still on a good descent path. It's still kind of high, but we can still make it. If you see 2 white, 2 red, means that you're on perfect glide slope to intercept or to touch down between the threshold and the touchdown zone. Okay. 3 red means that you're low, and at that present angle, you'll touch down slightly before the threshold. And 4 red means that you're going to completely miss the runway and impact before the threshold even begins, possibly even on the runway lights. So ideally, once you're about maybe half a mile away, you want to maintain, I would say, at least 3 white. And once you're about a quarter of a mile away, you're trying to maintain between 2 white and 2 red. Okay. Anything below then, you're going to want to add power, because power indicates that you're going to maintain altitude, and you're going to want to start a climb, or at least kind of drive it forward until you intercept a better position on the glide slope. Okay. Think of the runway lights as a guide for you, and this is kind of what you want optimally on your VASI. Alright, and that's pretty much the demonstration on what an actual runway is. Alright, so let's talk about some other stuff. So we always talk about, being on final approach, and I think everybody universally understands what final approach means, but there are certain things that are key said if you're doing pattern work or if you're flying in the pattern. Okay, so if you're a beam of the runway heading, so let's say we're landing runway 18 today, let's say that we always enter on the downwind, no matter where you go, unless you're going on a straight final. And that is completely determined by whoever's controlling you. So we'll add this text here. This is common airport procedure. Pretty much everywhere you go, you always enter 45-degree angle to the downwind. Okay. So let's say that we're coming in from the northwest, right? So we come in over the top, and then you basically break into a 45-degree entry, or you can come in from, in this case would be the east, and then enter in on this angle. But you always enter in on a 45-degree angle to the downwind. That way you're not messing anybody up. And also, common procedure is that you're always entering the downwind as somebody is on either their base or their final turn or their upwind turn. That way you're maintaining at least two movement positions away from the other aircraft. Let's get rid of this guy and then proceed on. Okay, so let's say that we entered into the downwind, and this is basically our position. Let's say we are roughly about here. And most small aircraft and single engine aircraft, or generally any aircraft, this is about when you're starting to configure the aircraft for its base turn to its landing. So on the F-16, your best forward speed in the pattern should be no greater than about 230 knots. If you're on the downwind, depending on who's in the pattern. So if you have a slower airplane in front of you, you want to take that in consideration. If you're the only one in the pattern, pretty much have free rein on whatever you want to do as long as you're maintaining that. Okay, so you enter in on the downwind, and that's your call. So let's say, for example, today our call sign. Our call sign is Viper 31. So as a call to the tower, let's say this is real life, you would say Viper 31 downwind for runway 18, or Viper 31 downwind for 18. By that point, the tower, it's given the tower basically your heads up call that you're about to turn left base. Alright, so you have left base if you're turning left into runway 18, or right base if you're doing opposite pattern going into the right side. So if you turn right, it's right base. If you turn left, it's left base. Make sense? So you generally don't report, as an advisory, you say, hey, I've entered the downwind, yada yada yada. Your next call is going to be your base turn for final. So let's say that we start our base turn towards final, and you say Viper 31 left base for runway 18, or Viper 31 left base 18. That's going to let whoever's in the tower, whoever's controlling you, to give you a heads up on if you're clear to land or not. So by this point, you're completely configured to land the plane. Let's say for the F-16, it's basically geared down, and if you're using visual conditions, then you're shooting for a 3-degree glide slope inside the AOA indexer, which I'll show you guys in game in a little bit. Alright, so we're left base to final, and once we return final, we're basically looking for that VASI, which would be in this general area, and we're looking for what? At half a mile, 2 white, 2 red. Alright, you ride that all the way down, and the landing parameters for the F-16, depending on the weight, but average is about 140 to 160 knots. That is about the average. So you're looking to go into 18. You touch down, voila. Alright, so let's say that you're doing touch and go operations, and you're on the upwind now. So let's say you're going around. This is what's called the upwind, and if you're departing into the pattern, that's what what that is basically. Then you have what's called the crosswind. Basically, the beam of the base is your crosswind, and then to the downwind. Hope that explains it, but that's pretty much it. So next, let's talk about what are landing attitudes for generally any aircraft. So yeah, 5 degree. Depending on how high you are, this is what you want to intercept. Or I'm sorry, you don't want to intercept. Mainly because you'll be pretty fast and your descent rate will be higher. Just imagine 3 degree being most optimal for most aircraft, and that's generally what's going to get you those 2 white, 2 red on the VASI, and 1 degree being very shallow, and that's what you're going to get your 4 red on. Okay, so just think of it, 4 whites on the VASI for 5 degree, 3 degree you're generally going to be about 2 white, 2 red, and for 1 degree you're going to be full red, all the way across the board, all the way across the rainbow. And generally, let's say that this is the threshold, that's about where you touch down, and as you can see, generally that's a pretty good depiction on where you would touch down in relation to the runway. So let's say this is the threshold, and that's the 1,000-foot marker. That's a pretty good depiction on where you would be. Save. Untitled because I'm lazy. Alright. So let's talk about airports. Since we're going to be going to Kunsan, let's see if we can control find it. No, it's on page like 40 something. It's loading. Let's see if I can pull it up. Alright, so on Combat 6, you can go to, I'll drop this URL in the video, but you can go to, let's say we're at Kunsan, the Kun today. You can click on Kunsan and it'll give you the runway information. So here, let's go to the runway diagram. So as you can see, we're talking about runway 18 and 36. So this is what we're looking at. So this would be our downwind. This would be our left base. This will be a final for runway 18. This is the ILS information for the tower. That's the tower frequency and the transition level and the transition altitudes of where you would be making your transition into the runway. All right. Let's see. These are a taxi diagrams. So you have Alpha Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and then yeah. Anyways, let's see. All right, so these are the departure procedures for Kunsan. So DME basically being the distance away from the base in essence is about 2 miles on each direction, and then you turn out 180 if you're departing to the south. Alright. Here's ILS information. So these are ILS procedures for landing 18. We're going to be talking about visual procedures, so it's not necessarily important. But let's say you're landing in instrument conditions. This is about this is what it looks like. So your DME at 20 miles. And voila, it's got your TACAN information up here. We'll do a TACAN, or we'll do an ILS or IFR video later. But here's the VFR procedures. Okay, so we're talking about left base and downwind and all that good stuff and basic traffic pattern. So this is what it looks. If you're doing a visual, or if you're doing a straight in, this is the arc or the line that you would take to intercept the runway. So let's use 18 as our demonstration runway, and this is about what it looks like. So if you're doing local pattern, this is what you're so let's say this is we're landing 18, so this is a right base, your final, your downwind, your upwind, and your crosswind. Okay, And let's say that this is a visual indicator that says, alright, I can go from this bridge to this arc and then intercept a right base instead of flying the entire downwind in the pattern. As you can see, you enter in close to, if you're coming into a local pattern from the west, you would come in at a 45-degree entry angle and then make your base and your right base and final turns there. But other than that, that's about as realistically informative as a airport diagram gets. Tower frequencies are pretty important if you're flying. You want to get in contact with the tower. But for all intents and purposes today, we're not going to talk to the tower once we get in game. So that's about it. Any questions, you guys can go and drop them in the comments, and I'll drop this link in the description as well as in the video. But let's go and get in game. Alright guys, welcome back, it's Wolfer again. So this is the in-game map of what Kunsan looks like. Alright, so it's a basic training scenario. If you go to Tactical Engagement, Day Final Approach, and you hit it, it will pull up everything for you. You'll be in flight. Since we don't need to take off, we'll just demonstrate pattern work today. So first thing, you want to go to your data cartridge, hit preset 15, set tower, save. That way you can talk to them, not have to memorize the frequency. Let's take a look at our loadout. So we have nothing. It's a clean jet with it's a two-seater, so not as much gas. And let's go and take off. Alright guys, welcome back. It's Fluffer again, and let's go ahead and talk about some things. To configure the jet, it's pretty simple. Let's go. We're actually on a straight in right now. Let's keep our altitudes between, let's just for demonstration purposes, we'll do 1,000 foot today. And since we're landing runway 18 and normally it's a right-hand traffic pattern, we'll just enter in on an overhead brake, and let's never exceed 350 knots. So let's say that we're transitioning over tower, and we're, you always see the fighter guys do an overhead brake over the air base. You would just request an overhead brake, and from that point they would clear you to do it or not. Generally speaking, you're going to enter your overhead brake 1,000 feet over the traffic pattern altitude. That way you're co-located or co-deconflicted from them. So let's say that we're holding 2,200 feet, which is roughly about right. But once I make my brake, I'm going to let the gas or the throttle out, and we're going to enter a 45-degree entry into the runway for a downwind towards 18. So let's go and pause it here, and let's see if we can talk about some stuff. So as you guys can see, we're high, so we have four white, as I indicated earlier, for the VASI, and the runway lights are right here. Here's the threshold, and you never want to touch before then. And let's see if we can see the landing runway. So that's runway 18, and we're going to enter an overhead brake for a left downwind. Normally you brake over the end of the runway, but we'll just do it midfield. That way we can enter a 45-degree downwind. So we're about midfield now. Let's go and start our brake. Speed brakes are out. And by the time I loop around, I'm going to make like a teardrop arc. We're going to be shooting for about 1,000 feet for the downwind entry. Actually, so we're roughly entering a late downwind or an extended downwind. It's entered now. Try to maintain 1,000 feet and 200 knots. We're going to extend out for an extended downwind since we're demoing. It feels like I'm all over the place, but I'm just trying to maintain altitude. Let's leave the speed brakes in. We could actually make the turn now. So let's go and turn left base. So we'd call Viper 3-1 left base for one-way or 18. Speed brakes are out. Let's configure for the runway. And the gear's out. Aiming for 165. And as long as we keep our jet in this little box, maintaining we should be right on glide slope, which is what we're at right now. So as you guys can see, this little bar right here, that's your AOA indexer bar. If you keep this flight path marker in here, you should maintain 3 degrees, as well as this is your 3-degree mark. So as you see, we'll raise it up, keep everything in the box. And another thing to note here, here's your AOA indicator, and we're green. So as long as we keep this attitude, which is, like I said, anywhere from 145 knots to 160 knots, and everything's in the box, we should touch down at optimal speeds. There's the threshold, end of the runway, power's out, flare. Voila. Alright, so we're going around, so let's reconfigure the jet.
1-1, Kunsan Tower. Next time, wait your turn.
And speed brakes are in, power full burn, positive rate, gear up. 5 degrees, full, keep it in mil power. And our climb out, now we're on the upwind. Never exceed 350 knots in the pattern. Let's turn our crosswind turn now, and we're at 1,000 feet. Let's level off. And we're turning to the downwind. And we're high. That's fine. I'd rather be high than low. And we're flying the downwind right now, so you don't have to report this to the tower, but you would say Viper 3-1 and we're downwind. Let's say it was uncontrolled airfield, you would let everybody know where you're at. Let's go and put a slight descent and correct back to 1,000 feet. And we're a beam right now. So we're a beam of the 1,000-foot markers, which is where we're looking at, and we're trying to get down to 1,000 feet, which is where we're at. Alright, we can turn our left base now. So call here would be Kunsan, Viper 3-1, left base 18. It would say Viper 3-1, Windsor, yada yada yada, cleared for the option. And you would report Viper 301 cleared for the option. Alright, so we're on final. Let's go and bring the speed brakes out. Or lower left base. So let's bring the speed brakes out. And the gears down below 300 knots. Once again, we're aiming to put the plane in that 3-degree that box right there. And we kind of overextended. That's fine. Let's correct back to center line. 160. Alright, we're about a quarter of a mile out. Now we have good VASI indications. We're still a little fast. We could bleed a little of this energy out. And as long as we keep it at the end of the runway, which is about this indicator here. See, we're slow and low. Power's in. Awesome. Let's correct back. So that was a really low approach. That was that 1-degree approach that we're talking about. It happens.
Cowboy,
all you can do.
1-1, Kunsan Tower. Next time, get clearance before landing.
All you can do is go around or try it, and not try to salvage it in a real airplane. But all right, speed brakes are in, full power, gears up. We're on the upwind now. Perfect. All right, power's out. Keep it at 300. 5-degree climb. And we'll turn crosswind. We'll turn crosswind at 3 miles. And we'll cheat 2.8, 2.9. That way we're in the crosswind at 3 miles. 1,300 feet. We'll keep it level here. We'll crosswind. Let's turn down. Continue for the downwind since we're in a fast jet. $1,300 is perfect. I think we can hold this just fine. turn the HMCS on. So I'm letting the plane fly itself right now. Bring the power out and bring the nose down. Let's try to correct down to 1,000 feet. There we go. Perfect. Alright, so let's do alright, so we can turn left base now. Actually, let's continue to hold it till we're about 2 miles out. Oh, yeah. Actually, let's extend out. Let's do an extended downwind for a extended final. So we'll call out at 3 miles. Alright, let's turn left base now. This is way outside the arc, but just for demonstration we'll do that. So we're left base right now, Viper 3-1 left base for 1-8. And they would say Viper 3-1 wins, 180 at 1, clear for the option. So let's go and maintain that. Speed brakes are out. Bring the gear down. And as long as we keep this flight path marker inside that box, we should be in a good landing attitude. Keep the 3-degree marker on the VASI. Intercept, power in, power to hold altitude. .140 knots, so speed cross check is important. And this will be a full stop. We're a little high. Let's keep the power in. So this is perfect landing attitude right now. We're slow and low. Continue to press. Keep the flight path marker at the end of the runway. Alright, we're back on the glide slope. And we're taking over visually.
Cowboy 1-1, Kunsan Tower. Next time, wait your turn.
Air brake to let it out. And that is pretty much it. Anyways guys, that's pretty much all I had for this video. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, please leave a comment or shoot me a PM on the forums. And this is Fluffer signing out. See you.